Effect Radio, DJ Kid here with you, along with Mrs. Kid.
Hey.
We are here with Magdalene Rose and her husband Blaze, the drummer of Seventh Day Slumber and Maggie's band. How you guys doing?
We're good. We played a show last night, and so everyone is slowly waking up right now. So bear with us if we are on slow motion.
Early time of 1 p.m.
All right, so we're going to come in and we have played you, but we don't really fully know who you are. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from and how you got started in the industry?
Yeah, so I grew up with two sisters. I also have a brother. He's kind of like a unsung hero. He was not involved in any of the music stuff. But I had two sisters. We were in a band together called GFM, and we kind of did the local band scene thing for a while until we got connected with a radio promoter who got us basically blackmailed Joseph in order to bring us on tour because they went way back. He helped Joseph and Lori move into their first apartment in Nashville.
Wow.
And he's like, Joe, remember what I did for you? We'll have to bring these girls on tour. And we were not good at the time. And so they were willing to take a chance on us. And me and Blaze and his brothers and my two sisters all just became best friends. And that was kind of how we got into the touring scene and started to tour more on our own. We started to be more involved with church shows at that point too.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2022, God kind of called us all out of that. And it was this really big, life shattering moment because I really had no clue who I was outside of that. We had been in a band together since I was 11.
Wow.
And, we were homeschooled. It was tour, band work, and not much else. And I had no identity outside of that. And so my whole world came crumbling down, and I had struggled with my mental health before that already. But then with all of this just craziness, it was really hard to figure out who I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And Blaze was just my boyfriend at that time. And so I called him and his family, and I was like, you guys have so much experience. I think I'm still supposed to do music, but I have no idea what that looks like. My whole world has fallen apart. I don't know how to be away from my family if I want to continue to do music.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been away from my family. If God is not done with me in this area, why am I so angry with him? Why did he take this away from me? If I was doing what he wanted me to do.
Right.
And they were just quick to open their arms to me and just help me figure out a game plan. And they're like, let's talk about it. Let's pray about it. Let's be intentional. You can start another band. I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't even know what I would call it. That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just not in the headspace to do that. And Joseph from Seventh Day Slumber was the first one to be like, you could always be a solo artist. And I was like, that's so terrifying. Why would I want to do that? I don't want to do that at all. And he was like, okay, well, we take a moment. Let's pray about it. Let's figure it out. But these are all options you can consider. And it quickly became apparent that the solo artist thing was what God was calling me into. But I was like, I don't want it to just be me and a backing track on stage. I want to be in a band with people.
Right.
And Blaze was just obviously I'll be your drummer. And Weston was playing guitar for Seventh Day Slumber at the time. And he was like, I'll play guitar. We can write music together. It'll be us three against the world. And then we had Eli. He played bass for us for a little bit. And this whole process of trying to write music and be this new band just quickly became not just about the music. It was also about figuring out who I was as a person and who I was supposed to be, and what God was calling me into. And it was a process. There was a lot of hard parts to it. I was still struggling with my mental health at the time, and I struggled with a lot of suicidal ideation because of how much whiplash it felt like there was. And God walked with me through all of that, and he took me from this really miserable person who was struggling a lot, who had a hard time trusting people, had a hard time with relationships in general, to becoming this person who is now healed. And there's so much freedom and joy in my life, and I have hope, and I got to marry my husband. I got to be in a band. We don't have a bass player anymore, but we got a new guy named Zach. He plays guitar for us. And, we have some of our best friends on the road, and I get to meet so many amazing people and share my story. And it's just, amazing to see the person I have become after all of these years, after all
Yeah.
those that struggle. And I really could not have done it without Jesus being with me. And at some points, that was all I really had to hold on to. Even if I was angry at him in the moment, he still was the only thing I had to hold on to, and he really carried me through that. And
Right.
um, with our music now, we go into these like rock and metal scenes, and that was what I found comfort in growing up, the music that I felt like I related to the most. And so now we can go back into those same scenes and preach that there is hope and that there
Mhm.
is freedom. And, we can relate to you because we've been through the struggle, we've been through the hard time, but you don't have to stay there. And it doesn't have to define your life. You don't have to be this person who only has a struggle to hold on to. You can break free out of that. You can find hope and joy. And it's just awesome to be able to speak into people's lives when be somebody that I looked up to way back when.
Mhm.
I'm now stepping into the shoes of those people for the next generation. I mean, even for people my age and older, we speak to people of all ages who, everybody needs somebody to talk to. Everybody needs to know that they're not alone. And so it's awesome to see where God is taking us now, the music that he has given us and inspired. But yeah, now I get to tour with my husband, with some of my best friends. Seventh Day Summer brings us on tour all the time. Obviously, they're my
I mean,
in-laws,
when you're
Blaze's
family, you're
parents.
family,
Like
right?
we share like musicians, and it's cool to have like actual family on the road. And the people that aren't blood related still are our family because it's such a tight-knit community out here. And it makes being on the road less hard because you're not quite as homesick. Obviously there's still people you miss. I don't see my blood family as much anymore because they're not on the tour bus with me anymore.
Right.
But I get to have a family here who is supporting me, supporting us as a band. And I think that's really cool.
You talk a lot about your mental health. I have a question for you. What would you give advice you'd give our listeners on how to deal with some mental health issues?
I think the biggest thing is it's important to talk about it. And for a long time, I didn't talk about it. And I thought that, I just had to fix it myself. And it was something that I was struggling with. And so, I could handle it. And I didn't need to be a burden to other people. And I didn't need to have anybody else's input because it was my life and what I knew what I was going through, and that was enough. And this stuff is so isolating, and it's important to talk about it. If you can't expect people to understand what you're going through because people can't read minds, but also people are so willing to help. Like there's so much love that people have for you, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to, bring things up when you're struggling. It's not a burden to people. And, when you start isolating it, it makes things a lot worse. And so, maybe somebody doesn't know exactly what you're going through. Maybe they've never been through that exact situation, but people can listen. And it's important to ask and speak up, even when that's so scary sometimes.
Right.
But, you'd be surprised by the amount of people that are willing to be there for you.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To that effect too. Now, we'll change subjects in a minute, but have you met Grace Graber yet?
I have, yeah. We were able to tour with her for a few dates last year. But before that, I met her at Life Fest, and she came running
Awesome.
up to me. And she was like, "I'm Joseph's friend." And I was standing next to Blaze's dad. And I looked at him. I was like, "You know her?" She goes, "No, I don't know her." I was like, "What Joseph are you talking about?" She's like, "Joseph O'Brien. He was on Weird Jam with Seventh Day." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I know Joseph."
That's
And she's
funny.
like, "Oh,
That's
Grace,
funny.
I'm gonna be your best friend." And I was like, "Okay." And so we've been talking, and we hang out a lot when we're not on tour, which is funny. Like we'll go to movies together. We'll have girls' night. She works at a salon, so
Mhm.
every once in a while I'll get her to do my eyebrows, or like she'll call me when they're doing new testing things. She's like, "I have to learn how to do dermaplaning. Do you want to come be a model and I can shave your face?" I'm like, "Sure."
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I always say that because she's done the mental health tour that she's done, and it's also very important to her talking about mental
Yeah.
health and stuff. And so I think it'd be awesome to see you guys do a full-fledged Grace and Magdalene Rose tour.
Yeah, that would be so much fun.
Oh man, that'd be a show to go to in a minute. All right, so I love your background, and you do have a new album out it's been out for about not quite a year yet, right?
Mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, and then we'll go ahead and discuss the main topic?
So we put out an album in August last year called The Heart That Bloomed After Death.
Mm-hmm.
And that album is really just about, the story of the transformation that God did in my life. It starts with a song that literally is called I Don't Know Where to Start, because that's really how it felt. I had a relationship with God, and I had grown up knowing who God was. And I had to learn how to trust him when all of this stuff fell apart, when I was struggling. And I felt like, well, maybe my faith isn't strong enough because I'm not getting better and I have to be on medication and this, that, and the other. And so then for a while, I was like, okay, well, maybe I need to figure this out by myself. And I never stopped believing in God, but it was something where he was more on the back burner. And I was like, well, I'll get to it. I'll handle this. Like, don't worry, God, I have this. And like, that's the worst thing you can say, because we really don't know what we're doing. Like, and when Blaze encouraged me to like speak to God honestly, I really didn't know where to start. And that song really captures that a lot, because it was like, I haven't talked to you like this in a long time. And if you would have me back, like I would love to be in your presence again, God. But I understand if that's not the case, because I've kind of like done you dirty. And so it was just like kind of a cry to come back into community with him. And like, God is so gracious. He would never be that petty. He's willing and ready for you to come back every single time. And, the album then goes through my life story of things that he's delivered me from, like an eating disorder. Or, I think life is important to highlight the people that are also in your life, not just you. And so I have friends who struggle with self-harm. I have friends who have struggled with their mental health because of childhood sexual abuse. And so I wanted to write songs for them as well, and to share their stories, because, it's important to highlight other people as well. And then the album ends with a song just and from a place of gratitude, because there has been so much change and growth in my life. And I am genuinely so much of like a happier and like better person. And I can trust people, and I have these good relationships. And, there's, even in the hard times, I know where my hope is now. And I wouldn't have gotten there if it wasn't for God. And that whole album just kind of, I don't know, just goes through where my mind was at in each of those moments. And it's just a story of transformation. And it's cool just to see the people that relate to it, because some of it was just written from my personal experience. Some of it was written from my friends' personal experiences. But I have people saying, how did you know this about my life? And I was like, I didn't. Like, we're just, we pray when we write, and we hope that God can use it. But, you just never know. Like, we're just writing. Like, we have no clue what we're doing. And it's awesome to see how God can then translate it to other people to show his love for them.
No, that's amazing. All right. So moving along into the elephant in the room. So my wife and I will be married 2 years. Well, we technically are.
Yeah.
But we have 2 anniversaries. And you guys just celebrated your 2-year anniversary, right?
Yes.
And you came back from that anniversary trip with news that isn't necessarily a surprise to you, but you felt like it was time to just finally speak up, correct? So
yeah.
Can we address that and discuss? I love the way that it's been, this whole topic, this whole issue has been resolved. But at the same time, it is something that needs to be talked about in the sense of, why do we still, as a body, try to judge on appearance, try to judge on a musical style, like all these stupid things, that we as humans judge on. But honestly, in my experience, the Christian church, the Western church, really eats their own when it comes to this kind of topic. So can you address you can make it quick, address what happened and then the resolution of it, and then we can go from there.
So we came home, and my dad was actually the one that had told me about it first. And he told me, he was driving the bus at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he just let me know. He's like, hey, I just want to let you know this, just so you know, like, not trying to say that, like, Maggie needs to change anything or anything like that, or to discourage you guys, but I feel like it's important for you guys to know that we had a couple churches call, and they weren't really a fan of how Maggie dressed or how her music sounds and anything like that. But there was one church that called and specifically canceled because they just said that it was too dark. And
Right.
my dad was like, what is that? I don't know what that means. Cause they didn't give any other context other than the tour looked too dark. And so my dad was like, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, I'm just gonna be honest, it's Maggie, it's Magdalene Rose. She just looks too dark, and we just can't have that at the church. And unfortunately, we're gonna have to cancel.
Wow.
And the church had this show booked for about a month, I would say, maybe a little more.
Yeah. It's not like they
And
knew,
so
you know.
yeah, and so um, it was a bummer because like it's obviously not like this is not the first time it's happened, and it doesn't happen like every single day. But it is probably a lot more common than people would think. But this one was just one where I ended up my Maggie was back in the bus. She could hear our conversation and stuff, and obviously she was bummed out, but also just frustrated because it's like this was an opportunity to minister to people and to reach people, and obviously we're not so prideful that we're the only way that we can reach these people, but like God was opening a door, and
Yeah.
like that could have been something that could have been really huge for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And so my dad was like, man, it's frustrating, and I feel like you need to. I'm not going to tell you like what to do, but Maggie, I feel like you should make a post or some kind of like just something, just being honest about how you feel. And
Yeah.
and so she did. She wrote it out. And he's like, make sure be respectful, but also just like be honest about how you feel. And so obviously Maggie wrote the post, and if you've seen it, then you know what it says. But
I've played some of the audio clips from her about this. So
yeah, yeah. And so basically just telling people like we need to be better, telling churches we need to be better. And it also wasn't a situation of like church bashing, because we love church. We have a home church now that obviously Maggie struggled. She's talked about it before, but she
Yeah.
struggled with church hurt before, and didn't go to church for years, up until like the last few years. And so it's somewhat recent coming back to church and stuff. And God has done so many amazing things through that. We play so many amazing churches, but there is somewhere it's like, guys, we got to be better about this. I understand we don't expect everybody to like our music, and metal is not for everybody, rock's not for everybody.
Right.
Not everybody wants to dress in all black. That's okay, but we aren't saying that people have to bring in these shows, because we don't think that everybody does have to do that. But there is also a thing where it's like, if you already have a show booked and there's people that are looking forward to it, and things are happening, and people are like, oh, this might be my chance to take my son or daughter to this show.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll hear this message, and then it gets canceled. Then that's a different thing. But anyway, it was just something she wanted to talk about that, and so she talked about it. And
But she did it very tastefully too. It was
yes,
it was a very well
didn't
put
name the
together
church
post.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the thing. And it's like, she didn't name the church, didn't say anything like that. And it was so crazy because she was expecting it to, like, she has followers and expected it to go to them and kind of stay in that circle.
And then it didn't.
And it did not. It did not at all. Literally, she posted it, and I think it was like 27 minutes exactly. We were like, she opened it up and she's like, oh my gosh,
A
there's
wildfire.
like
now.
150 comments or something like that.
Right.
And we were like, oh dang. And then before we knew it, people just started posting about it.
I might have
there's a
helped.
Christian-
I saw it and I was like, oh, I'm mad now.
yeah, no, we saw y'all's post. We saw there's a page called Kingdom Core, who is like Christian metal and rock
Yeah.
news pretty much, and they posted about it. And then it went from the Christian circle to like Rock Feed posting about it, which is
Right.
like one of the bigger rock, like general market rock news sources. And then one called Rock Documented, which is another big one. And then like one of the biggest metal ones, that has like almost 2 million followers on Facebook or something like that, called Metal Injection, posted about it, and it just blew up, and like everybody was talking about it.
Yeah.
And it was just insane. And like the crazy thing is, like, it was a lot of positive comments that were like supportive, and like, man, you guys, this sucks. Like, I'm sorry this is happening to you guys. Like, the church, we need to do better as a church. And then people that weren't Christian that are like, man, like, that sucks. I don't even believe in God, but they shouldn't be treating her like that.
Right.
And then we even, like, Maggie even saw people posting about stuff and messaging her, like, saying like, hey, this situation, and this is like a little bit after it had come out already, but like, this situation has encouraged me. Like, I've seen people commenting that are not for what happened, not for what the church did. And like, seeing how many people that there are that really do care about people like me, like that encouraged me. Like I feel like I have the courage now to go back to church and try it again, even though it's scary. I want to try it again because
Yeah.
of hearing Maggie's story and hearing these people in the comments that are so encouraging. And then,
God used this
um,
bad thing and turned it to good, you
yes,
know.
yeah, exactly. And then on the other side of it, there's been people messaging Maggie like, "Hey, this post actually kind of like this whole situation kind of helped me realize like I've been kind of judgmental and like I need to be better. There's some things that this kind of like convicted me. I feel like I had to like God use this situation to convict me and like I'm I haven't been as open minded as I feel like I should be.
Mhm.
And so it was really cool to see both sides and God use it for that. And then like that's probably the coolest thing, along with the fact that the pastor that had actually originally canceled the show in Texas, his wife reached out to Maggie and sent her a message and said, "Hey, my husband wanted me to pass this message along to you, and he just wanted to say basically sorry," and sent the screenshots, like 5 screenshots of a
Right.
long message. And um, it was crazy. Basically, just him apologizing and saying like, "I was wrong, and I'm sorry that this happened, and I'm glad you spoke out about it because I haven't felt peace since I canceled this event, and like God has used this situation, and I'm glad you spoke about it because there does need to be change in the church."
Mhm.
And basically, he wants to be a part of that and wants to. He's like, "I want to change as well," and I just God's opened my eyes on this situation, and it was really cool. And he's like, even said like, "I would love to have you guys back at our church sometime,"
Right.
and so that was super cool. And like, and I saw
Wow.
people in the comments, and people were like, "Well, he didn't message you personally, and so he didn't mean it, or they didn't schedule the event right away because he didn't mean it for real. He's just trying to save faith." And it's like, no, you didn't get the message. You didn't see it.
Yeah.
First of all, Maggie's a married woman. His wife is married. He's married.
Accountability
He
happens
probably
there.
doesn't want to. Yeah, he probably doesn't want to message a married woman while he's married and she's married. Like it
Yeah.
makes sense. And like I don't know. I thought it was heartfelt. Like you hear like apologies or stuff, and you're like, okay, I don't know about that. But that one, like, I believe him, and I thought it was really really cool that he was like willing to reach out
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like Maggie had no hate for anybody or anything like that. She was more just like, man, this is frustrating and we need to do better. And there's people that could benefit from concerts like these. And it just took on a whole thing. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, and it's a big thing in the whole industry as a whole. Even you know my position. It's like you know a lot of people they call in and they're like, hey, we want this band or this band or this band to play, and it's like I can't really play
Hmm.
that in the morning. Tune in later, you know, and
Yep.
it's a political work there, more or less, and a dance that you have to do.
Hmm.
But all in all, what really came to my mind, and I personally have lived by this verse since I was a teenager, is 1 Corinthians 9:22. You know, become all things to all men, so by enemies necessary one might be saved. And those of us who are a little bit outside the box, like you, Maggie, and like you, Blaze, you know, 7 Day Slumber, even,
Yeah.
there's always that one, and if you do a show somewhere and there's no interaction, and then you're loading your trailer and one person comes up and is in tears or is like, man, dude, that totally hit me. That's what the whole night's worth, you know.
Yeah.
And as a church, as a radio ministry, even with what I'm a part of, that's really all that matters. Is yeah, you want the crowd. Partly, let's get real. Partly, you need to be paid. You got bills
Yeah.
to pay. But the other side of it is like you're there because God's put you there for a
Hmm.
reason, and so for people to go canceling and stuff like that, it's frustrating to me, as an artist, as a radio DJ, as a worship leader. It's frustrating to me that people's perceptions of what is real religion or real holiness gets in the way of what the Bible says. And the reality is,
Yeah.
is Jesus ate in the dirt with the people that didn't matter.
Hmm.
And so Maggie, that's what I feel your ministry is, and it's what you do. You connect with the girls and the guys that don't get connected with very often.
I think it's really cool that somebody like us who feels like outcast at times can like then reach out to other people who feel the same way, and people feel less alone that way.
So my son is a fan. He says he's emo. So today when I was getting dressed, I was wearing some black pants and he was like, no, Mom, you can't dress like me. And so he actually has had an issue come up where
He showed us on Saturday, or showed me a text on Saturday about a girlfriend group. We'll just call it that. Basically said you can't be a man of God and be emo and dress the way you do. And I'm like, wow, isn't that the conversation?
Yeah. So what advice would you have for him?
I think the biggest thing is that, God sees your heart, and he's not judging the color clothes you wear or the way you do your hair, or and none of that even comes remotely close to what salvation is. If your heart belongs to Jesus, if you're living out his calling, what does it matter, like, that you have holes in your jeans, or that you have your fingernails painted or whatever? Like, none of that stuff. Like, God is not looking at that. He's looking on, like, what is your heart? Like, where is your heart positioned? Like, what are you doing for my people? And I think it's important to take a step back and be like, okay, what happens to extending God's love and grace to people? Yes, we have to speak his truth, but last time I checked, there's not a rule book in the Bible that says you can only wear khakis, or you can only wear nice pressed pants. Like, those stuff didn't even exist back then. So, like, if we want to get real biblical, you shouldn't even wear that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me with that sort of thing. But also, like, there's a little, like, social media trend going around, and what I've shared on my page too, it's Jesus loves his ravens just as much as his doves.
And I loved seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can
awesome.
see how, like, God has used both. And there are instances where doves were used, but also even in the ark, he sent out a raven before a dove. And sometimes
ravens fed Elijah, like the blackbird.
Yeah, and I have a big raven tattooed on my back because of that. And I think sometimes God needs the people who are willing to go into the scary places, are willing to go meet with the people who are, like, on the brink of death, or who are struggling so bad. Because even in that passage, Elijah was struggling with, he wouldn't even feed himself. And so God sent ravens to feed him because he was so distraught. And I think, God needs people who have been in that space to then go and reach the people, because they have the same experience. They have lived experience in that, and they have an extra understanding. But on the other side, he needs people to reach others who, like, are afraid to wear all black, who don't like that, who don't like metal music. He needs people to reach those as well. So it really takes all of us. If we genuinely believe that Jesus' love is for everybody, if we genuinely believe that we should make heaven crowded, then it really is going to take all of us going into all these different subgroups of people, into the subgroups of music, into the subgroups of fashion. And we all have to work together. And, a family is messy, it's complicated, but there's also different factors to it. And that's what makes it so special, is that we all can come together. And I think it's really important that, we stop operating out of this place of judgment, because there's nowhere in the Bible that says you're supposed to, like, I don't know, you can't be emo. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I think it is a big thing that we are supposed to love one another and edify each other and build each other up, instead of being so focused on tearing each other down any second we get.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, we got to wrap up this interview. Blaze and Magdalene Rose, thank you so much for being here with us. Mrs. Kidd, thanks for joining me.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and go back to radio.